How are you both?
Okay.
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Got out and enjoyed the awesome weather the first half
Mhm.
of the day. So nice.
It is.
Um, so Maria had forwarded me your original consultation form, which doesn't give a ton of information. So I would love to hear from you guys, your expectations, what you're looking for, and we can kind of just like shape the conversation from there.
Well, did they pass on to you my original email to Jesse?
So I had spoken with Jesse on the phone, and he gave me kind of like a rundown of your original email and your asks and all of that. So I do have that history as well.
Okay, because I'm 71, and my youngster of a wife here. If you can, let's see.
Good.
Well, I mean,
She can see me. I'll move. Hi.
she's 61, and I've been thinking for a long time about, I thought of the service dog, but in talking to a different trainer, you know, she was explaining to me that a service dog would do things like lay down on me, because my issues are anxiety and anxiety, and I go, the idea of a 30 or 40-pound dog laying on top of me is not, part of my thing is feeling confined. And so that's not what I want. I want somebody to keep me company.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to bed last night about 6 in the morning. So I'm keeping vampire hours. And so she suggested what I really would want would be an emotional support animal. And this lady is in Virginia, actually, and what she does is she would actually go to a breeder, find the animal, obviously this would be in consultation with us, our requisites, and so forth, and then go through for emotional support. She indicated several months of training with the dog. And then again, her being in Virginia, she would come up here, I'd go there for 2 weeks and work together with the dog, and then it's turned over to us. And so we've been debating about this, and then I saw the article in the New York Times that mentioned you guys,
Mm-hmm.
Jesse in particular, about about trainers like yourselves being inundated with all these people that got dogs during the pandemic and didn't know what to do with them anymore.
Yeah.
And let them get crazy. So that was the reason I contacted you guys, because obviously we're in Addison.
Okay.
You're a little bit closer than Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said that you actually have some experience with, I gather Jesse does more training of the dogs that want to bite your arm off or whatever.
Yeah.
But you've done stuff like this, or
yeah.
So that's why we're talking.
Yeah, definitely. So that's really helpful. Yes, I do have experience with this. My service dog puppy that I'm raising right now, sleeping in a kennel next to me, and I sit on the board of directors for a service dog organization. It's something I've been doing since grade school. So very familiar with the training, the temperaments needed, and also like the differences in the legalities surrounding the two. Is that something that I guess what I'm asking is this a dog that you would just want to provide ESA work to you in your home environment? Or is this a dog that you're also expecting to be able to take into public, to fly, et cetera, et cetera?
Um, yes, taken to public. I mean, when I say, I don't know that we take the dog to friends' houses. Surely we would, in some cases, in other cases not. Some people
Okay.
aren't comfortable with dogs. It wouldn't be something I would necessarily need the dog for. No.
Okay. Definitely. So the big difference between the ESAs, and stop me if you already know any of this, I don't want to waste your time. Big difference between the ESAs and service dogs is ESAs don't have any public access rights under federal law, under the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. There are exceptions that are allowed to be made at the local government level or with private businesses. So you'll see some landlords will say, this is not a pet friendly establishment, but we do allow ESAs. There are some restaurants, other things that will allow ESAs, but under federal law, it's always the expectations that ESAs do not have public access, only task trained service dogs. And that includes trains, planes, anywhere public, hotels, unless it's a pet friendly hotel. Service dogs, on the other hand, are task trained, and they are trained to a higher level to be able to perform in public. And that is a longer training process because that also involves extreme socialization and desensitization to various environments. So kind of two different routes there. And so it really depends on what your needs are and what your expectations for the dog are. If you are looking for a dog to be task trained to interrupt anxiety behaviors or to provide specific types of anxiety relieving measures, service dog is probably the better way to go. An ESA you can think of as a very, very highly trained pet that is chosen to have a very specific temperament.
I actually thought the ESAs could go on airlines. No?
No, so as of December, the federal law was
Oh,
changed.
it was changed.
Yep.
Okay. Um,
Pet dogs can still fly in the cabin if they are of a size that they can fit in a travel carrier that fits under the
Wow.
the seat in front of you.
Too small.
It's quite small, yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, I really don't, in terms of for anxiety, at least from what I've told, is I'm not sure that the service dog would be able would do much for me. I mean, it's not like retrieval or closing doors or the other stuff service dogs do.
So task trained service dogs for anxiety type work can be things such as compulsive behavior interruption. So if you're like a scratcher or a pacer, they can recognize those behaviors and interrupt them. They can also do DPT, deep pressure therapy work, which is what that trainer sounds like they were describing to you, where the dog lays on pressure points that are known to decrease the physical symptoms of anxiety. They can also do blocking behaviors. So if you have social anxiety and you feel like a panic attack is oncoming and you need space, the dog can circle around you to make sure that nobody comes into your space in a public environment, different things like that.
No, I don't think the ESA would, I mean, the service dog level would be needed.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like you just need or not just, but you're looking for like a very highly trained, reliable companion that has been bred for a temperament to be calm, aloof, chill, that type of dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you, when it comes to the dog itself, the big question is, do you have any wants versus absolute needs?
Um, well, I guess we need it to be hypoallergenic. You know, we don't really want a shedder.
No. And we watch our granddaughters that are small 2 days a week.
They're three and 18 months right now.
Oh, okay. Very small.
Yeah.
They
And
love
very
dogs.
busy.
Is the hypoallergenic an absolute need? Does someone in your family or they have a dog allergy?
Me.
She does.
Do you know if you're saliva or dander allergic?
Gander.
Dander, okay. So that's definitely going to cut your options down by a lot, because dogs that people think are hypoallergenic, like doodles, are not. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So that really brings the pool down. So I'd also be curious about what size dog, do you have like any size want or need?
Well, as I kind of mentioned, I have ideas. I'm not sure how, if we'll follow through with it. Like, you know, we live in a single family home. It's large, and we have a fenced yard.
Mhm.
And I've seen these doggy doors. You know, the one I saw was a couple $1,000. They fit into a sliding glass door. There's a collar around the neck of the dog that, you know, as the dog approaches, the door will open,
Yeah,
let
yeah.
them through, and so forth. And in creating a kind of a, I'm not sure quite how we do it, creating kind of a dog run, so that if we went out, let's say of an evening, and what people have said, the problem with having a dog is, oh, we have to be home by 9 o'clock because the dog has to go out.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, the dog could let itself out for those circumstances. That's not to say we wouldn't walk the dog, but you know, there'd be an alternative.
Yeah, so there are risks with those because dogs that can let themselves in and outside can get into stuff outside and they can get stolen. Purebred dogs get stolen. People who feel like they need to run home to let their dogs out, in my opinions, they're letting their dogs run their lives, and that's not how it should be. An adult dog can hold its bladder for 8, 10, 11, 12 hours, no problem. You know, given of course that the dog has had its physical and mental exercise met, that's what I worry about more than holding its bladder. But also you have to realize that that's part of owning a dog, right? Like,
Mhm.
dog needs to go out, so you may need to go home.
Right.
It's part of having a dog, but I don't raise my dogs in a way where I let them rule my life. They don't have specific feeding times, so I'm not one of those people, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I gotta get home to feed the dog. You know, so you can adjust, you can raise a very flexible dog where you don't become, you know, your dog's slave essentially.
Yeah, we've seen, excuse me, we've seen people in that position or seemingly in that position.
Yes.
The other thing about the doggy door, which is why I was shaking my head, was there's a lot of skunks around here too. I don't want the dog to get skunked, come back in muddy, and
Yeah.
then have the role of the house.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I've I've heard some horror stories with the doggy doors. The best scenarios that I've seen with doggy doors are people who have a mud room, a small mud room, and the door goes outside to like a small enclosed area.
Mhm.
And so, if it's muddy, the dog comes inside to a small tiled area. And they're going out to a small enclosed space, so like raccoons and other dogs aren't coming through. So,
Yeah.
or could work.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, and the other, sorry,
no, it's okay.
the other, that was one of the reasons we said we didn't want, you know, besides not particularly liking small dogs, like the little 12-pound,
Mm-mm.
8-pound dog, is that around here,
They'll get
they'll,
shot.
they'll be carried away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very real thing. So like, are you looking for like a hardy medium-sized dog?
Yeah, I've always liked, I've liked shepherds. I like big dogs.
Oh, you do like big dogs.
I do,
Okay.
but um, I'm not sure my partner feels the same about that.
I'd like a nice chocolate pit bull, honest to God.
I do
Oh.
love kitties.
Oh God.
I know. I wish you didn't have allergies. Are you familiar with the breed Portuguese water dog?
Yes,
Oh, whoa. Yeah, he is.
Porties?
I it's not a long story. I lived downtown, and I was having some work done, and the fellow came in, and he had his dog with him. And he said, "Well, I usually leave the dog in the yard in the car, but they wouldn't let me leave it in your garage. So do you mind if I bring the dog in?" And I go, "No." And then comes in, I said, "Can I give him water?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, that'd be great." And the dog walked around, looked out the window, checked out things, and then curled up. And he
Yeah.
was telling me how the dog, all it wants to do is be with him. He just, uh, uh, you know, sits in his office or whatever, goes with him on, calls and stuff like that. And that was that was before Obama
Hmm.
came into office, and the price went on water dogs went sky high.
Yeah. So
I, I knew of one lady that got turned down 2 or 3 times by a breeder that she wasn't good enough to have one.
yes, I mean, that's the sign of a reputable breeder, in my opinion. Breeders who aren't breeding for money. The best breeders, they have 9 to 5 jobs. They're breeding the puppies for a purpose to prove their dogs. They're not in it for the money. So that's ultimately what you'd be, hoping to acquire. The good news is in the Midwest, there are some really great Portuguese water dog breeders because there are a lot of sporting clubs in the Great Lakes areas because they're water retrieving dogs. So they run their trials in the big lakes. So there's like a cluster of really great breeders in the Midwest. I was actually helping another family look into Porties, and I was really impressed by how many great ones we have in our vicinity ish. So that could be a really good dog. Standard poodles are awesome dogs, super versatile dogs. They are more drivey and they're super intelligent. So that's a dog that if its instincts aren't met, can be a lot to manage for some people. There are also drivey dogs like legatos. Like these are all proven breeds that breed true to be hypoallergenic. So that's like the family of dogs I'd want to stick with you guys. The other question is like puppy versus adult, right? Because a dog is really a puppy until it's like 2 years old.
Mhm.
So,
Oh,
like it's like, yes, the training, a 6-month-old dog could have really great behavior. My current puppy, she just turned a year. You would never know she's a puppy, right? But she's had extensive training since she was born. And she was bred for this type of work too. So something to consider would just be like the time lapse there. And are you willing to deal with a dog that's still a puppy? You know, like Tango's really highly trained, but without supervision, she'll go in my shower and take out my razor and chew on it, you know? So she's still a puppy.
Mhm.
She performs at a high level, but she's a puppy still. So there's that. But what you can do if you're willing to wait a little bit or willing to pay for a dog to be shipped to you is breeders sometimes have teenager or older adult dogs that they sell. And it's not because they're bad dogs, but good breeders will hold dogs back from litters and see how they mature to see if they would make a good show, working, or sport prospect. And if they aren't the best of the best, then they sell them. Or they may have a dog that they were using for breeding or sport, and dog either produced puppies that just weren't ideal or didn't turn out or isn't performing in the sport, so then they sell it. But these dogs still make wonderful pets. So that's a really great way to get an established adult dog. It just takes a little bit more legwork and some more time. But, you know, but that being said, to get a really super well-bred puppy, that takes time as well.
Mhm.
Well, what about what this other trainer was talking about of like, she told me she would go to a breeder that whoever she would use and look at the litter or, yeah, I guess litter,
Mhm.
and try to find a dog that would suit the client. You know, like for us, it would be the laziest dog in the litter.
Yeah. So that's definitely a thing. But so, like, just to put it in perspective, only 40% of guide dogs actually graduate, 30 to 40%. And those are dogs strictly bred from very genetically researched lines, bred for the job, and still only 30 to 40% make it as guide dogs. They could save a whole bunch of money and time if they could tell in the beginning which ones were going to pass and which ones were going to drop out.
Sure.
It's really a gamble, you know, like there is a big difference in nature versus nurture, but the nature that you can see in a 5, 6, 7, 8 week old puppy isn't always true.
Okay.
So there are some things that you can see, you know, there are temperament tests, there are stimuli tests that you can do with a puppy to set you up for success, but nothing's ever guaranteed, right? Like the dog could grow up and have epilepsy or diabetes, like, or hip dysplasia, like, you know, so that's just one of those risks that you get with taking a puppy. But like I'm not against it, right? It's just something that you need to be aware of, that nothing is guaranteed.
The impression, again, from I got from the other trainer was that the dog would be, I guess, more like 2 years old when we would get it. Now, how long she would be working with it before it was turned over, we never got down to the actual timing of it. But I
Okay.
think she was talking more like what you're saying of getting, yeah, an older dog, not dealing with the puppy.
Yeah. Like older dogs are just more predictable, right? And if they've lived with someone, the person they've lived with can tell you their quirks, they're this, they're that. I would probably say yes, if you were going to go like a puppy route, a year and a half, 2 years, so you can have high expectations. And that's just like, I mean, with the e-collar training that we do, that can't start until 6 months. That the dog will excel through very quickly, right? Like
So
six.
what you're saying is that we did the puppy route, we get the puppy, we, I guess, house break the puppy ourselves.
Well, no, we could, sorry, I'm just
No,
rearranging.
we're not.
No, so
No.
that's something that we could do. We could basically raise the puppy for you. So, like, for instance, right now I'm raising Tango on behalf of a service dog organization. I have her for her first year of her life. I teach her all of her basics, I socialize her, then I hand her over for advanced training. That's like a very common thing in this world. Something else to consider is every service dog organization has dropout dogs, and they adopt these dogs out, and they often make wonderful therapy and ESA dogs, because like the standard to graduate a service dog is so high that one minor health issue or one minor behavior issue, they're automatically can't be a service dog, but they would make an excellent ESA or therapy dog. So that could also be something we could look into. Service dog organizations don't breed or have a ton of hypoallergenic dogs. A lot of them try to do the doodle thing, but if you know anything about doodles, they're super unpredictable, so they cancel their programs. But there are some that do standard poodles or the next size down, the miniature poodle, which is like a medium-sized dog. That could be something that we could look into as well and try and get on a waiting list for a career change dog that would already have a foundation of training and socialization.
What was that breed you mentioned? Legato?
The Legato, they're commonly mistaken as doodles. They are an Italian breed, similar to the Portuguese water dog. They're bred for water retrieving as well, except they're much drivier. So when I'm talking about drive, that means like how much passion the dog has to work. So if you think about like working canines, military dogs, super focused, they're drooling for that ball, they're fast, they're quick, they have a lot of drive. When you think about an overweight family Labrador that just kind of meanders around, not a ton of drive. St. Bernard, you know.
There we go.
Yeah. So, and you'll see like a lot of therapy dogs used for children are those giant breeds like Newfoundland, St. Bernards, because like they're just so aloof and they're just passive, right? Drivey dogs aren't so much that, but they're super easy to train because they're very eager to please and solve problems. Okay. But it's also like a lifestyle thing. Is do you want a dog that needs to play ball, wants to swim, you know, do these things?
No.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, play ball, yes, but not have to go on 4-5 mile brisk fast walks.
And I wouldn't expect that from you. Yeah. And that's like why with the puppies, they need that.
Yeah.
Like it's very rare to find just like a lazy puppy, especially with the breeds you're going to be restricted to, which is why they pass the puppies off to people like me to raise them and say, see you in a year and a half, 2 years, you can come back and be a mature adult. Yeah. You know? And I just say that all to set expectations. If you want to go the puppy route, could definitely, you know, find a breeder, help evaluate them. That's like one of my skill sets that I'm really good at, calling bullshit out of breeders. I pride myself in that for sure. There are Portuguese water dog breeders who are known to throw, which throw is the term breeders use for what they produce, to throw a lot of therapy dogs and dogs of those types, which is the temperament you'd be looking for. And then, you know, I'm very well versed in the service dog school organization world, so could try to use some of my connections to hunt down a good career change dog that would be hypoallergenic, but they're just so few and far between these days. Some of them are Australian Labradoodles, which are the only legitimate type of doodle. But we would need to test how hypoallergenic that specific dog is, because it's not guaranteed.
Australian
Labradoodles are actually a combination of 6 different breeds. They have Poodle, Labrador, and a couple different Spaniels bred into them. and they're the only doodle that has a governing breed club and a standard to which the dogs are bred.
Hmm.
And they come in a couple different sizes, but the standard ones, like the full size ones, are usually the most legitimate to the breed. So that could be something to consider as well. How severe is your allergy? Like if they were to mail you a clipping of the fur, would you be able to tell if it was a trigger for you?
I think I would.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's helpful. Um,
I think I would. I mean, I've gone into people's houses, sat on the couch, and 10 minutes later, my eyes are burning.
okay.
You
Yeah.
know,
So it's very quick. There's a service dog organization in the suburbs of Illinois or suburbs of Chicago called Heartland Service Dogs, and they had a doodle breeding
Okay.
program. Have you guys heard of them?
no, but I want to write this down.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up their website right now because I can't remember exactly, and I want to make sure they're still in business. I almost raised a puppy for them. Heartland Service Dogs. Okay, they're still going. That's a good sign.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. Where are they? Oh, adopt a career change dog. So they do have career change dogs. They are an 815 area code. Is that Rockford?
It's
No, it's not that far.
not
Okay.
45 minutes. My sister lived in Crystal Lake, McHenry area. She had 815, so.
Oh, okay, perfect. So I'm looking at their dogs right now. It looks like they have a lot of golden retrievers. I wonder if they're still doing their doodle program.
Now you said Heartland, I'm sorry.
Heartland, one word.
Right.
Service dog.
Their current level litter is all Goldens. They used to do a ton of doodles, a ton, like all over their Facebook page were doodles. But you know what? Maybe they could be a good if they were in the doodle space. They may know some other service dog organizations with reputable doodles that we could patch test their fur, their hair. The doodle genetics are really confusing. You'll see like a lot of like F1, F1B, F2B, that all relates to the generation of the dog and what the dog is bred back to. So ideally you get a multi-generation dog that is bred back to poodles consistently to try and get that more hypoallergenic combination. And the further you go down of breeding the dogs, the more closer to proven they will be. So like a first generation of golden and a poodle, you don't know what you're going to get. Right. But then you take that puppy and you breed it back to a purebred standard poodle. You have a better idea of what you're going to get, and it's most likely going to be more hypoallergenic. But then that puppy is bred back again to a standard poodle. Do you see what I'm getting at? Yep. So you get your dogs are more proven as you go down the generational line. So these are all things that I understand that the average public don't, that I know what to look for and can help navigate. But I think what it really comes down to is you guys making a decision about whether you want to go the puppy route or try to really commit to finding an adult, or maybe do a search at the same time and see what we can turn up. Because right now, without having taken the time to look, I really don't know, what dogs are out there for you yet.
I mean, I'm not against it, given the concept of you having the puppy like you've done, with Tango, I guess, right? That could work. I mean, it's not. I've been toying around with this for a couple of years now, so it's not like something, that's a desperate situation.
Okay.
So we could wait On the same token, if there was an older dog that fit the profile, as it were, that would be fine too. I have a built-in hesitancy. I had dogs for a while when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and we ended up going. I don't know if they're in business, called Orphans of the Storm.
Yeah, I've been there.
Okay, and we had a chance to get a purebred shepherd that the people that worked for my dad, they raised it. It was 6 months old. It was trained. It was this, but it was an international champion, product of an international champion and a national champion. And the idea of spaying that kind of a dog would be criminal. Of course,
Hmm.
my dad thought he'd make a fortune breeding, but the dog took to us like crazy. And once we had it in our teeth, now believe it or not, they wanted the lordly sum of $150.
Oh, that's so cheap.
Tell
Basically
her how long
free.
ago that was, though.
We're talking in the early 60s. So,
Yeah, add another zero to that is what my dog cost.
oh yeah, I mean, it's not more. Um, so, but now my brother and I had the hook was in our teeth, in our mouth. So my mom went out to Orphans of the Storm, found probably a 3-year-old shepherd, brought her home, beautiful dog, liked her, and she kept leaving. She didn't want to eat. She left wet piles in the carpet. My mother was cooking better for the dog than for us. And after, like a month or two, my mother couldn't handle it. When she brought it back to Orphans of the Storm, the dog tore the heel off my mother's shoe, was so glad to be back. It was like their pet. It
Yeah,
was like and this was home to
yeah.
her. And so when I think of getting an older dog, I think of that situation where, the dog wouldn't adapt, is missing its former owners or whatever. And so there are problems uh, that could be there.
I think that's a thought that a lot of people have when adopting a dog or even adopting a human child, right? Like, will it ever
Yeah,
be
true.
my own? I can tell you from raising puppies who come in and out of my home, that's not the case. That's us humanizing the dog, especially a dog that's bred in a way to bond with humans. Like, I'm Tango's third home. You would never know that. Flew here on a private plane, hopped out of the plane, tail wagging, went home with me, didn't even look back. I send her back on Friday. She's probably gonna go, that was fun. See you later. On to my next adventure. Like, dogs that are suited for this work are highly adaptable, and that's why they're suited well for the work, because whoever's at the other end of the leash, they're just happy to be there. And does it take time to bond with a dog? Of course. But that's true for a puppy or an adult. You need to work with them, build that relationship, establish trust, boundaries, rules, structure. But once they understand that you're their person, that bond grows. And I'm sure you've heard the flip side of many adoption stories where the dog just takes to their new owner so quickly. It's just magnetic, right? So I wouldn't let that get in your way too much. Dogs are quite adaptable. And your dog going back to the shelter could have just been excited, right? Like, I know these people, they fed me every day. They were dog friends here,
Mhm.
you know?
I could have been. It was like we were feeling sad, like, oh, we're bringing it back to its shelter, and it again seemingly couldn't be happier.
Yeah,
That was,
which I'm sure didn't make you feel great seeing
No.
that.
Yeah.
well, we felt better. At least we weren't bringing her back to some,
Horrible place.
yeah,
Right. Yeah, I get that. I wouldn't let it get too much in your way though. Dogs are so adaptable, they're scavengers at heart. That's how we domesticated them. Anyone who gives them food can be their new best friend for most dogs.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't, think about how many dogs are rehomed every day. But of course, something to consider, we would want to make sure that if we chose an adult dog, ideally you have the opportunity to meet it and just make sure it's a match, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's of course important, because you have to like the dog too. It's not just about the dog fitting your lifestyle, but you also have to like the dog. So a lot to think about there. But it sounds like you're okay. So like what would be your ideal time frame to bring a finished dog into your home?
Um, we're flexible. I mean, I think tomorrow might be too soon, but
Yeah.
it could be anywhere from like 30 days out.
Okay.
That's why you're here.
30 days definitely too soon. I don't imagine getting a dog and training it for you in 30 days.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just saying that there's,
I was going to say the fall.
Oh, okay.
I mean, is that doable? Is that
if we were able to find an adult dog, that is more than doable. Absolutely.
What kind of dollars are we talking about? And I'm not pinning you down to a number because it would depend on.
It probably depends on a few things.
Well,
yeah, the cost of the dog, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
If you purchase a dog from a breeder, an adult dog, they usually spay and neuter the dog for you, and then it's up to them if they pass that cost on to the consumer. Some very few would give you the dog and then have you spay or neuter it themselves, because they usually don't like the dogs to leave their home without being spayed or neutered. Just to, like, protect their lines and such. And I say that because spaying and neutering a dog is more expensive than people think. It can be, upwards of $1,000 if you do it at a good place. So it depends on what the breeder would be willing to sell it for. If the dog has been titled, if it's not, the age, how much training they put into it, super variable. Puppies can be anywhere from like $800 to $1,800. I would probably say like expect $1,000 to $1,500 for a good breeder.
Okay.
And then the costs, I mean, just like the costs that go into a puppy are just expensive. The vaccinations, like that all, it just adds up so quickly. Every time they go in for a vaccine, it's like a couple $100s, right? So that adds up. And then the training part of it, that would be TBD, based again on if it's a puppy or an adult. Because puppies are just a lot more work than adults. Because, it's the potty training, the crate training, the socialization, the back and forth to the vet, the figuring out what diet works for it. Just a lot, which is why you probably see our prices for puppy they're just more. It's so much more work. Adult dog would be, not nearly as much, I would assume. I don't set the pricing, but from what I know, how we've done things in the past, adult dogs would be cheaper. And the puppy would also take longer to train. So that's going to, the length of time is also going to add more costs. Yeah. So a couple of variables there. Adopting a dog like a career change dog from a service dog school, they usually, the cost is considered a donation. So some of it can be written off as a tax deduction. You can't write off all of it because you're getting a good in return for your donation. but that's usually, $1,000, $1,500, sometimes $2,000, but you'll get some of it back as a tax deduction. And those dogs come fully vetted, all of that. They'll be spayed or neutered as well. So I know I didn't really answer your question because there's so many variables.
I just trying to get an idea if it's, 5,000, 10,000. I mean, I know it's dependent on, like you say, puppy, adult.
All right, let's just do this scenario. It's a puppy, an expensive puppy, and it's going to be service dog trained.
Not sure.
I'm just saying, I just want like the highest ballpark, just so we know. Okay, that's $25,000, but it's not going to be that much. That's all. You just want a ballpark, right?
So like,
we're not talking about a service dog, so that's,
I understand that.
I guess what's the most expensive emotional support dog?
Well, I was going to have her go way up, and then it won't be that. I don't know.
Yeah, so like to answer your question, the way up. Tango's organization, the cost of one of their dogs, I think, is $15,000.
$15,000 for the dog. For the dog?
For the service dog. And these are task trained dogs, diabetic alert dogs, service dogs. However, it's funny because there are some organizations who don't charge and they just have super long waiting lists. But they say with the training time, with all of the stuff that we just listed, that the value of a guide dog going out the door when it graduates is $50,000. But that's not the price you would pay.
Mm-hmm.
But gosh, I don't know. So let's say the puppy's $1,500. It's going to need to be spayed or neutered. Let's say that's
$1,000.
$600 maybe. And then vaccines, the veterinary costs, because puppies always have the random diarrhea and vomiting, that's probably in its first year of life, $1,000 just to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to add in, which is something I want to talk to you about, with the hypoallergenic dogs that have curly coats, grooming is an expense. These dogs need regular professional grooming every 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow.
And if you don't do it, it will get very gnarly because the curly coats get matted. Mm-hmm. And then when the mats grow into themselves, they tear at the skin and it can get really gross. It is painful for the dog. It's not for the cat.
Yeah.
But if you're really diligent about combing every day with a wide tooth comb, you can prolong that. But let's say grooming every 6 weeks. In Chicago, it's $85, $90. Where you guys live, it's probably significantly less. And then the training portion of it is going to be super variable. If it's a puppy and if it's with us for 8 months, I don't know, that's something Jesse would have to answer for you. He sets all of the prices.
Well, just assume on the high side. Well, I think we're already saying it,
20 grand.
It's not.
Okay, 15.
I wouldn't say 20 grand. Gosh, yeah, I wish I set the prices, but I don't.
It's not
I really don't know. So right now, a 2-week board and train for a puppy is like $1,500 or $2,000. But that's
I think.
That's something I planned. So Jesse told me gather all this information from you, take it back to him, and we would talk about
together.
Because this isn't something that we do on the regular, so we don't have a price range for it. But we're not going to charge you a 2-week board and train times 8 months. Like that'd be insane. That'd be insane. So we can get back to you on that as a follow-up.
Okay.
Um,
So we should look at, well, do you want, are you going to contact Heartland or you want us to, or?
I can contact Heartland. I'll take that as a follow-up. I will give them a ring.
And
then we should look at, well, I know what the Portuguese water dogs look like.
what was that other one again?
The
Legato?
Legato, Lagotto. That's not going to be my first recommendation for you.
Okay.
Because there are smaller, like maybe a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier. Are you familiar with those dogs?
That is exactly what everybody's been saying. Oh, that's the dog to get. That's the dog to get. But
they're good dogs.
But
with terriers, when the breeding goes wrong, the breeding goes wrong. A lot of reactivity, neuroticism. So I always tell people, like, herding dogs and terriers have to be from an excellent breeder.
see, that's why it's just good to get a pit bull or a Rottweiler. See, I love them though. We had dogs when I was young too, and I had a shepherd. She was a mix, but she looked like a shepherd. I loved her, but man, she was a killer to my head. We had a lab. We had something else. I can't remember.
But your allergies weren't doing well for you, or did they progress as you?
They progress as I've gotten older.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Our favorite dog was the Cocker Collie mix.
Oh, interesting. So I have a Springer Spaniel, and a lot of people get Sprawleys, Springer Collie mixes. They're cool dogs.
Yeah.
But my nephew, they have Rosemary's
She's cute.
She's a sheepadoodle.
Oh yeah, those dogs. I'm like, Old English sheepdogs are already fluffy, curly, hypoallergenic dogs. I'm like, why do you need to breed it with the poodle? It's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, she's cute.
The guy that first did the Labradoodle, the guy that first invented, you might say, the breed, feels like Frankenstein. He said he created a monster.
Yeah, I saw the New York Times article.
Yeah.
It's the doodle mania is pretty bad. It's a lot of consumers just get ripped off. It's really bad.
I mean, there's some of them I don't think are that. Some of them are incredibly cute, great looking dogs. Some of them, kind of leave me cold. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and some of them are just weird mixes, like husky doodles, border collies and poodles, even Australian shepherds and poodles. They create these manic neurotic dogs because you're mixing a herding breed with a retriever breed, two different types of drives.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's you have a dog that wants to herd and retrieve. It's just a lot. It's a mess.
Oh yeah, we don't want that.
I was very, very impressed with that Portuguese water dog. I remember thinking at the time, this is the dog I want.
Porties are awesome dogs. I think a lot of people who get doodles should just get a Portuguese. I think almost everyone who gets a doodle should have just gotten a Portuguese water dog. I love them. They're awesome dogs. And I'm glad the Obamas made them more popular because they're a great breed. But my takeaways for you guys coming out of the consultation is I'll sync back up with Jesse. Just reiterate everything we talked about, what you're looking for, how you're open to puppy versus adults, and get with him, try and get some pricing brackets in line with what would be appropriate for each and like a time frame as well, just setting expectations of time. And then another additional cost that I didn't mention is like the finder's fee of finding the puppy, just paying for my time of looking into the
Oh,
breeder.
yeah.
Sure, of
I
course.
think that would make most sense to be an hourly rate,
Mhm.
if that's something you're comfortable with. If you'd rather pay a flat fee,
Are are you working below the federal minimum of 15 an hour? Or?
I I know you're my type of people. So I have like a job, and I do all of this as a second job for fun.
Oh, really?
Oh, okay.
Yes. I just accepted a new job at Google, actually.
No kidding.
So yeah. So dogs, I love dogs. Dogs are my number one, but they don't pay my bills. So this is kind of like a side project for me, but still give it all of my time and love. So I think like doing an hourly may make sense, because I'll need some time to like scope the landscape, weed out some breeders. Once I find some breeders that I trust and I love, they themselves can be really good resources of finding dogs that are off market. They may say, hey, I just saw Cindy at a dog show last week, and she mentioned to me she has a dog she is gonna maybe try and sell as a pet. A lot of those dogs get sold off market just within the breed network. So it's important to kind of build get an into like the market. So these are, all things that I'll talk with Jesse, and he can come back with some price brackets for you. And just, and then it'll be up to you guys if that's something you are comfortable committing to or not.
Okay.
Yeah. Two things. Personally, is this if if when things become normal, is this with Google's that something you will be staying here, or will you be going out west?
Oh, no. I'll be here. I'll be here. And so I manage the puppy program for Canine Perspective. I built all the methodology, all of that, and I do the puppy classes and, stuff like this. But the puppy would be living at the facility. So it's getting training from sun up to sundown. And, all of the handlers there are well versed. They do the puppy board and trains when I'm not there in person. So I also want to set the expectations. The puppy's not going to be in my home with me. I could definitely bring the puppy into my home for periods of time just to practice household manners, counter surfing, not getting into the trash can, no furniture, things like that.
No
But
furniture.
the puppy would be living in an environment where it can be exposed to all different types of dogs, people, sounds, noises every day, and get that training from professionals every day. So
Well, the other thing is so you would not recommend my brilliant idea of the dog door as a
is this gonna cause
as a
He already said no.
well, I'm thinking, well,
it's just a risk. Does
yeah,
the dog being able to let itself out outweigh the risks?
yeah.
I don't think so. But the one thing I didn't think of was having somebody steal the dog out of your backyard.
Oh yeah,
I was thinking more of the raccoon that lives in a big tree in our neighbor's yard behind us.
yeah. I mean,
And the
maybe I'm
skunk.
biased because I live in Chicago, but most of the dogs you see on sale for Craigslist are stolen dogs.
Yeah.
Especially purebred dogs are always a target for that. I've had 2 people in my network who have clipped their dog to a phone pole to run inside and grab food to go, and they come out and their dog's gone. And on the security cameras, people just come up and walk away with it. It's insane.
What what about the chip program? I mean, just curious, does that help? Does that
So the chip can be a great way to identify a dog, but people have gotten onto that and they'll cut the chip out of the dog because it's just on the surface of their skin. So if they can feel where it is, they'll just cut it out. It's disgusting.
No one is getting near our dog.
I know. People wonder why I'm such a psychopath with people near my dog. I'm like, that's why. But
Huh?
you guys don't live where you don't live in the city, so
No.
I'm sure
Well,
it's different
not saying you give me the address, but where do you live in the city?
in Wicker Park.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my nephew that we talked about with the sheepadoodle, they live in Roscoe Village.
Okay.
So, they put Rosemary in a cage and they're always walking her and she's never outside without them, obviously.
Yeah.
They live in a 2, 3 flat kind of building.
Right.
But,
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do the doggy door to a small enclosed dog run, they
well,
make tarps that you can put on top to shield from rain, snow, sun intruders. um, it's kind of just what you're comfortable with.
Well, here, our patio door, there's a little landing and then there's 3 or 4 steps down to the patio. So it's not, that would not be a good spot for it. We have a garage door that comes in the side, but our mud room is between the garage and the kitchen, really. So
yeah, I was thinking about,
there's not a good way
I
to,
was thinking about it, it wouldn't be of an enclosure outside the side door by the garage. You could be narrow but long. But no.
I mean,
Okay.
if you're going to put this much time, effort, money into a dog, why risk it?
right,
And realistically speaking, I think what you're envisioning of your head of being like shackled to this dog needing to go outside, mate, is probably not going to be your reality. If you're, going out all day, sure, you'll need to come home and let the dog out. But, dinner and a show, you don't need to be running home to let the dog out.
I mean, I'm retired for sure. Mary Ellen, when pandemic ends, may go back part-time, but her other job is with the 2 kids.
Mhm.
So Thursday, at least 2 days a week, she's at home, and then and if you take the kids out to the park, you take the dog with you.
see, push the dog off on me.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's like, it's not like you have a 9 to 5 job and then the weekend you feel guilty leaving the dog home
Right,
again.
no,
It's different. Like you have the luxury of, being retired, semi-retired. Great life for a dog.
Now, what male versus female? What's your thought?
It depends. I mean, I prefer males just because I like males, but like Tango's a female. The personality traits in some breeds, males are known to be tighter bonders than females, which is you'd expect the reverse just
Yeah.
because. But every dog is an individual dependent of their gender. Where the big differences come in is if the dog was going to remain intact, but that's not going to be you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that when you were talking about a Portuguese water dog, which is purebred, like I said, when we looked at that shepherd, it would have been quote criminal to spay her because of her lines and so
Yeah.
forth. That's not an issue with the water with the what you call it, Porty?
Yeah, the Porties. That's a great question. So, fixing a dog is best done when they have finished growing. Because when you think about it, imagine if you castrated a child before they went through puberty. It's the same thing when dogs are castrated before they can go through their growth.
Oh.
It messes up with their physical development, their joints. So I see like a lot of dogs with hip dysplasia, elbow dysplasia, bad patellas, but it also changes their psychological development as well. Because the testosterone hormones doesn't just affect their growth; it affects their brain development and maturation as well. So breeders are really common that they'll make you sign a contract that you won't castrate the dog until it is at least a year or 18 months old, depending on the dog, the breed. For shepherds or larger dogs, it's usually 2 years because that's how long it takes them to grow. So that's where that comes into play. So, like a lot of these dogs that you'd get from breeders, they're past that point, and that's why they'll spay or neuter them before they leave their home because they're already matured.
I'm sorry, you lost me there. And when you get it from a breeder, I thought I'm thinking you get a puppy that's a couple.
Oh, if you purchase an adult dog from a breeder. If
Okay.
you purchase a puppy, they come home with a contract, a spay or neuter contract. And they'll follow up with you. So when the dog is spayed or neutered, you get, from the vet, obviously a receipt that has the date on it. And the breeder at around a year or 18 months will start knocking on your door. Has the dog been fixed? Let's see the date stamped receipt of that. And if you did it too early, there can be consequences. That would be a break of contract. And then if you're not doing it, they can also take the dog from you.
Oh, okay.
Wow. Okay.
The best breeders are really strict about this because they don't want people irresponsibly breeding their dogs because there's so much science behind how they pair their dogs and their reputation's at stake as well. So if they were to just find out people were just breeding their dogs to whatever down the street, they get pissed.
Yeah, that was
And rightfully so.
one. Our last dog was from a pet shop. I guess a puppy mill. We didn't know any better.
Yeah.
It had post-distemper virus.
Oh yeah.
And I would sit under the dining room table. She'd be crying and whimpering. I'd be stroking her head. It seemed to help until there was nothing more to do but put her down.
That's really gnarly because that turns into a neurological disorder, right? Or is that lepto?
No, it was neurologic. And
Yeah.
it was,
Distemper's nasty.
and it was a border collie.
Cool.
It bordered everything in the world,
Yeah.
So it was a sweet thing, and so anyway, we've taken up enough of your time.
Yeah.
It'll be great working with you.
Yeah, I would love that. It'd be really, really fun experience. Like this is what I love doing. And we're very well equipped as far as training goes. The last thing is, we do use e-collars for our training and prong collars. So if that's something that you'd want to talk more about, the methodology of training, that's fair game to talk about as well.
Okay. Explain what both of those are.
Okay, so with puppy 6 months and under, it's all treats, food, positive reinforcement, puppy stuff, the basics.
Babies.
When the dog turns 6 months old, that's when they're ready for big girl, big boy training. And that's when you can start to hold them accountable for what they know. So the e-collar is often misunderstood as a shock collar. It's not a shock collar. My dog wears one. Like I tried it on myself. It's not a shock collar. That's a whole other conversation we can have. The prong collar is a collar that looks scary. Many people call them like pinch collars and stuff. They're not that either, and we can talk about that as well.
Okay.
But those are the tools that we use to reinforce behavior. That's how we get so much reliability. So the dog is taught the behavior of positive reinforcement, and then when they're big boy, big girl, they're taught, we're holding you to this. Like we know you know it, so if you don't do it, there's a small consequence.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's the methodology, and then we also train in-home behaviors. How do I describe this? As like we don't teach no, because no means the dog can do something until it hears no. We teach that's just not something you do in the first place. So it's purely positive. It's a lot of food, and you catch the dog doing the correct thing, and then you reward that. Food is a good reinforcer for behaviors you want to see again, but for behaviors you don't want to see again, we practice just correcting the dog, which is usually like a poke or, you know, something physical in the language the dog understands as a means of ending behaviors.
You should
So-
do that with the 3-year-old.
I should.
Give her a poke.
I know my brother just announced his first pregnancy and he's like, can we send it to your puppy school, the baby? Yeah. It's like, it's applicable.
Big dog is Tango.
Tango is a year old and she is a half lab, half golden.
Ooh, but she's cute, huh?
Oh, you have no idea. She's like a tub of butter. Super. She's sleeping right now. Otherwise, I would show you. But she's got a super droopy face, you know, like the big ears. She's a model. Yeah, she's so cute.
So the dogs are crate trained.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's a
But that's
non-negotiable.
security, they're a little secure, their house.
Yeah, and peace of mind, right? Dogs in the crate. Dogs not getting into trouble.
Right, and, you know, get in there, you bad girl. Or, I gotta get away from you people, I'm going in there.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, she's in her crate. She's actually snoring. I don't know if you can hear that.
No, we can't.
But,
We don't wanna we took up way too much of your time.
oh, no worries. I'm happy to help. And we know we started a few minutes late, but yes, I'll sync with Jesse, transfer everything I told you I would. You guys can talk amongst yourselves and we can circle back. You'll either hear from probably Maria, and just, you know, talk about next steps if it's something you want to move forward with.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Awesome. It was wonderful meeting you both. Enjoy the nice weather today.
Okay.
You too, have fun with Tango.
Thank you. Bye.